Okay, let me call Asim. What up, dude? Okay, cool. Let's see if this is working. It's a bit choppy, huh? Let me see what's up here. Okay, I'm just... Wait, can you hear me? Mic check. Okay, I think yeah, I think once I switch over it'll be fine. But yeah, let's just get into it. We'll figure it out along the way. All right, everybody, welcome Asim, Hotel Garuda. Welcome.
What up, guys?
Welcome to the podcast.
The podcast.
How's the audio, everybody? I mean, we tested it a bit earlier. I think it should be good. The chat says what's up. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is episode 2.
Of course, man.
I'm, this is sort of new for me, but like, I guess like, we often have a lot of these conversations on our own. So like, why not, do it on stream and just kind of like let people get to know you a little bit more and, maybe learn about your music and your past and like kind of where you came from. So I guess maybe just to kind of jump into it. Well, actually, first of all, you guys should check out the Hotel Garuda remix of Passion that just came out that is streaming quite well, which I'm like really stoked about.
Got like a jillion plays already.
So
let me look at it. Let me check the stats while we're here. I think it's at like 300,000 plays or something. 285. Yeah, 285,000 plays in like 3 days, which is cool.
Pretty amazing, actually. I'm like really stoked about that.
Hell yeah.
And
Dude, me too.
Especially considering my the title of my podcast is a little bit.
Yeah, it's a dig at Spotify. I love it. We love.
I mean, just trying to keep them a little bit honest. After giving.
Yeah, keep them on their toes.
After giving Joe Rogan $200 million, the argument that they can't pay artists is a little. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little shaky at best.
Okay, but okay, so go check that out. The Spotify command in the chat, you can check that out. It'll send you there. I guess a big portion of my audience is there's a lot of sort of up and coming musicians and people that just kind of want to know how to break into this world. And I think the thing that I talk about a lot is that like everybody's path is different and it's going to be unique. So I'd really like to dig into like the nitty gritty of like early on, like even like kind of like how you got into music like early on. Like what was your first interaction with music, even as a kid? Like how did you get into it?
I think the stuff that sticks out to me the most from my childhood is like the stuff that my dad used to play in the car when we would go to like the swimming, like the public pool on the weekends, and like the stuff he would play at home on the weekends. And that stuff was mostly like, it was mostly like Deep Purple, Alan Parsons Project, Pink Floyd, ELO, Camel,
Nice.
Like a bunch of like prog rock and like psych rock from the 70s and 80s. I didn't get into more American music until I was like 15 or 16, which is when I got into like Guns N' Roses and Thin Lizzy and Motley Crue and like that genre of music. And it kind of coincided with me playing guitar or starting to play guitar at the same time. And so like the idea of having like a guitar hero on the wall was like for sort of like a very direct sort of prize that I wanted to achieve, or like a sort of level that I wanted to get to.
This to me is like pretty fascinating because like, a lot of people when they, listen to Hotel Garuda and like, I don't know that that's like the association that's immediately made. I mean, I would say maybe more recently with some of your new material that I've heard, but like, a lot of people are sort of just like, it's like electronic music. You're a DJ. You must love DJs. It's like when it.
Yeah, it's like there's so much more than that.
Yeah. Wait. Did the video just get really small? That's funny.
Weird. I'm just hosting you. I just made it so that I host you on my channel. Wait. Yeah, my face isn't.
Hold on. Let me fix this.
Okay.
That's pretty funny. Okay. It just got really small, but we'll figure it out. Okay, so yeah, Thin Lizzy. Also, like, where is this? Like, because you didn't grow up in the.
Oh,
yeah.
right. Sure. So when I was born in India, in Mumbai, and I lived in Bangalore until I was like 8 or 9 years old, and then I moved to Singapore, then I moved to Indonesia, and then I moved back to Singapore. So like somewhere along the way between India, Singapore, and Indonesia, my taste in music changed from like just the kind of dad rock that my dad played to more like I started listening to like more pop music. Like the first album I ever bought, like with my own money, was Sean Paul.
Nice.
Like when I think I must have been in like 5th grade or something, which in retrospect, terrible idea for my parents. Like, why would you buy your 5th grader that album? And so my taste in music sort of became pretty malleable around that time. And I would just kind of like listen to whatever my friends told me to listen to and like whatever my friends listened to, which I feel like is just how regular people listen to music. But when I moved to Indonesia, that's when I kind of started to really get into like heavy metal and metalcore and stuff like that. And
wait, did you have like, what kind of metal? Did you play metal at all, or like did you?
I did, yeah. I played in a metal cover band in like 8th grade.
Like what kind of metal are we talking about?
Like In Flames.
Oh, nice.
And like Trivium and like Winds of Plague, like a pretty broad range. But for a long time, like that's kind of all I listened to. Like for most of high school, that's like what got my rocks off. Honestly, like. Something about the aggression coupled with the really high level musicality is something that like I didn't really find in a lot of other genres.
That's like I was into metal when I was like a teenager, and that was like such a formative period for me because I was like I love the technicality of it. I think that was what drew me to it first. There's this band that I don't know if you know them, but Meshuggah. Like
I
like,
love them.
Just really intense, like
very, very intense, very heavy, very like complex. All these complex polyrhythms and like stuff that doesn't like, or rather stuff that makes you like really listen actively,
right?
If that makes sense.
But like as a teenager, like that's such a great outlet for that typical aggression that you have as a teenager, right?
Yeah. Absolutely,
I think my parents went a little crazy, or like I drove my parents a bit crazy listening to that stuff all the time. But it was like a perfect outlet for it, right? It's like
I agree, yeah, totally. I mean, I think most of the time when I was like trying to learn Meshuggah songs or Opeth songs or like whatever, I'm sure I was really just like grasping at straws,
right?
But my parents were cool with it because I feel like they wanted me to do something creative on the side. Little did they know that would turn into my job, but yeah, I feel like they were pretty cool about it.
Yeah, I've met your parents, and they're wonderful people.
Yeah, you have.
I met them in Singapore, and that was great. It was like it was a really interesting experience for me to have like sort of a home cooked meal in Singapore, and like it was really nice. It was like it was like the highlight of my week.
Right, because you were only in town. You were in town for a show, right? And me and my girlfriend were gonna come to that show, but we both like got sick the day before, or like the day of. Like both of us got a really bad cold, and we ended up not being able to make it to your show. But I'm glad we had. The time to just
it was a fun show, but it was like kind of actually I don't know. This really only happens in Asia, where it's like you're playing on this beautiful beach, and then there's like fire dancers. It's like
it's very over the top, very very over.
It's like it's the kind of thing that just doesn't happen in the U.S. or like anywhere else. It's like kind of weirdly typical. But no, I've been playing in Singapore for many years, and I've made a couple friends there. But it was like I don't know, it was like kind of a fun experience to just like hang out and
Yeah.
and meet your folks and all that. But okay, but back to music. So like, okay, so you're into getting into metal. Like, what kind of guitar? What kind of guitar did you play?
I had an Epiphone Les Paul,
Nice.
the Bullseye one, the Zach Wild Epiphone Les Paul. Um,
Like an amp as well, or
I had what amp did I have? I had the I'm forgetting the Roland Cube.
oh, nice.
So it was like the first gen of Roland modeling
Yeah,
amps.
yeah, yeah.
So like right when Line 6 came out with the Variax and the what's the pedal called? The Line 6 I think
The
it's called
pod. Yeah,
Pod,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so like right around the time that that came out, Roland came out with a series of like super low cost modeling amps, and I loved those. I even had I remember I used to subscribe to Guitar World magazine, and at one point there was like a centerfold poster of all these different guitar players' app settings.
Oh wow, yeah,
So
yeah.
like I had that up on my wall. Anytime I would try to learn somebody's songs, I would be like, okay, I wanted to sound exactly like them, so I'm gonna put my app settings
That's
on
that's pretty
whatever.
awesome. That like, were you like learning? Were you on like tab websites, like trying to learn how to play stuff? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I was heavy on UltimateGuitar.com.
I forgot about that site.
That was very much my shit.
Ultimate-guitar.com, right?
Yep, yep. And I think something that I register now as like a blessing and a curse. But when I started playing guitar, I didn't take any theory lessons. I didn't take like any like classical sort of oriented lessons. I had a teacher who would teach me the songs that I wanted to
That's
learn,
cool.
which like when I was doing it was so cool because it just kind of showed me that it was within reach.
Right.
Like these songs that I was listening to are within reach. Like somebody can actually play them that I know.
Yeah.
So like the more impressive thing was like the guitar teacher who learned the songs on the spot to then teach them to me. Like in retrospect, that's more impressive than anything else.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's it's interesting because like I'm self-taught as well. I mean, I did have a teacher briefly, but like I didn't have like the sort of the classical upbringing, you know, the typical thing. Like it just didn't. It wasn't. It didn't speak to me. So like I found learning other people's songs sometimes to be a little more, yeah, kind of what you're saying. Like it's attainable. It's like if you learn how to play Nirvana. For me, it was Nirvana. Like if I learned how to play a couple Nirvana songs, it was like, oh, like this is like actually doable. Like I wasn't thinking about it as a career or anything like that, but it was rewarding. You know, it was hard, but it was like there's like attainable, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Okay, so like, so you got into guitar. So I'm just trying to like picture like what age were you like with guitar? You said like a teenager. So
I started when I was I think 12 or 13.
okay, yeah, yeah, same.
And yeah, then I kept playing until I went to college, which is when I moved to LA. And sort of when my first year of college, I still kept playing, and I would still like jam with my friends and stuff, but definitely dropped off a little bit. And then it dropped off entirely when I found Ableton.
Right.
Because I kind of was just like, oh, I don't need a guitar anymore. I can just do everything with Ableton.
Right.
Because I saw the potential. Because Chris Manilakilla, like he put me onto Ableton and kind of showed me what you can do with it. And
Yeah.
as such, I kind of distanced myself from the guitar for a while because I didn't feel like it was necessary. But then after I had sort of a serious creative block with Ableton, and went back to guitar and found out just like how stress relieving that was and how much more natural it felt. I kind of now tend to use them both in tandem a lot
Yeah.
more.
It's interesting because like I feel like I had sort of a similar experience where I like, yeah, there like I'm primarily a guitar player, but like it was the same thing. Like I got really into synths for a while, and I didn't use much guitar, but like I still like now at this point in time, I really find that guitar is like the easiest way to get any kind of like melodies into like sort of the physical world, you know. It's
I
way
agree.
faster than just like programming something in Ableton. And as fast as Ableton can be, it's still, I don't know, it's just more tactile, more real or something like that.
Yeah, it's like it's at your
Yeah.
fingers. It's at your
Right.
fingertips, and like it directly translates to your
Yeah,
ears.
quite literally. Okay, so that was one of the questions I was going to ask. So like you really only got into recording later with Ableton, like in college.
Way later, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, way later. Like I think my third year of college is when we started Hotel Garuda. So I had been DJing in college for a while because like the sort of natural progression for me was from playing guitar in like jam sessions to seeing one of my friends. I think one of my friends had the iPad app for DJ, DJAY. And as soon as he showed me that, I was like, "Oh, this is actually way easier than it looks. Cool, amazing!" So I got that app for my laptop, and I started DJing at my friends' house parties and like my fraternity's house parties and stuff. And as soon as I kind of understood the ropes and like I found the ropes with what you're, I guess, quote unquote, supposed to do when you're DJing.
All the DJ moves.
Then it was like, yeah, exactly, all the DJ moves. Then it was kind of like the dam broke, like the levee completely just smashed open. And then from there, I was like, this is everything. Mm-hmm. This is everything I want. And back to Chris, Manila Killer, right? So he and I went to school together in Indonesia when we were like 12, 13. I've told pretty much everyone this story like 100 times. So like it's old for me, but it might be cool for people who are listening.
Let's hear it.
But basically, he joined my school in Jakarta at the end of 7th grade, and then in 8th grade is kind of when we became friends. We played on the same like community basketball team, like Little League, right? And we lost, I think, every game that year except for one, which we tied. Like the last game of the year, we were about to win, and then they made a basket right at the buzzer, and so we tied instead of like But we didn't lose every game, so that was some consolation. Anyway, after 8th grade, Chris moved back to DC, I believe. He either moved back to DC or he moved back to the Philippines, one of the two. But he moved around a ton between 7th grade and college. So we kept in touch by Facebook. Facebook, I think I got when I was in 8th grade, which is when everyone my age got it. So that must have been 2007.
Yeah, it's funny because for me it was like I was in college. Like I remember being annoyed that they opened it up to everybody because it was just like a college thing at first. It was like you had to have an EDU address.
Just like in the movie.
And then there was like now suddenly your mom's on Facebook and like no. God. Anyway, continue, please.
Yeah. So we got in touch on Facebook in like 8th, 9th grade, and I noticed that he had made a page called Manila Killa, and I was like, "What is this? This sounds cool." so I guess I'll throw it a like. And he was making like mashups and like edits at the time, very rudimentary stuff, but at the same time, like it was very impressive to me that somebody I knew could do that. Just the same way that I thought that learning metal songs was sort of like a realization of how attainable it was. Like seeing somebody else do it made me realize that it's not like this sort of rarefied, like mystified sort of thing that's unattainable. Like anyone with the right preparation, anyone with the right sort of not even education, just like with the right attitude towards it can attain it. So I kind of just kept tabs on him for a while, and I think we got back in touch my sophomore year of college. He's a year behind me in college, and so we're the same year. So he and I reconnected in college and just sort of like shared music back and forth. This was around the time that I got into like the recap videos from like Hard Summer, EDC, like Glenn Jamin, right? Glenn Jamin 3, the YouTube recap guy.
Forgot about that.
Photographer / video dude. And around that time, like I started watching those videos and like wishing that my parents would like let me go to these things, and like they were so disapproving of it, obviously, because let's be real here, it's not a very safe environment. Especially if you're like 19 years old. And so I really like got obsessed with Justice and Boys Noise, and anything to do with Ed Banger was like instant obsession.
Right. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like, especially if you're into metal. I mean, the jump from metal to Justice makes so much more sense than anything else.
I feel like it's a very like closely linked energy, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the energy in Justice shows is like very heavy, very aggressive, but like in a restrained manner, if that makes sense. So as soon as we kind of understood we liked the same music and we liked a lot of the same artists. I think I forget whose idea it was. I don't know if it was me or him, but one of us had the idea of like starting our own project, and him sort of teaching me how to produce music. Because I came from a DJing background, and so he came from a producing background. I came from a DJing background. We kind of just like complemented each other's skill sets that way. And yeah, the first song we made, like we just kind of did it over Dropbox or over WeTransfer.
Oh, interesting. So you guys weren't even in the same place. Like it was just
Oh no, I was in LA. He was in DC. Like we did everything remotely for the first like 3 years.
Oh wow.
For the first 2 years
That's
of our
crazy.
career. Yeah. Because he didn't finish school until 2016, I believe, or 2016, end of 2016. So we were doing everything remotely until then, and yeah, I was just kind of I liken it to sort of like looking at a puzzle, but already looking at a finished puzzle, and like kind of having an idea of where all the pieces fit because they're already all there. So in essence, I kind of had the cheat codes,
Right.
that a lot of people who are starting out don't have the luxury of like working with someone who's been doing it for such a long time that they have a pretty solid understanding of where EQs and compressors and reverbs and stuff go. Like I knew what those things were because I played guitar, and I knew what those things kind of did, but I had no idea how to use them in a producing environment.
Right. It was sort of like a fast track, or like
Exactly.
It's like really it's really useful to have maybe maybe a mentor isn't the right word, but like just somebody that you can like bounce ideas off of that knows how to do that specific skill set, which is like pretty specific. And like you can look up YouTube videos, but like it's a whole other thing to like have somebody you can just ask. It's like, hey, how do you do this? Like, okay, this is how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was like so within arm's reach that Chris was always super down to help me out, super down to help me learn sound design and like mixing and things like that. And yeah, so as a result, I got way more into mixing, and I got way more into like arrangement, because I feel like I have a sort of geometric like understanding of how a project file should look, which is like incorrect. I know it's not like I know it's not technically correct to think of music like a visual. You're using your eyes to make it, but it made sense.
I think with DJing, you definitely get this like inherent sense of structure. Like know how things build and the drop, whatever. Like you understand how that like how that works for people, because like I really do think like DJing gives you this like sense of like how long certain things should play out, or like how long to have a bridge, or like what silence does to people, like, or the right kind of I don't know, drum break into the drop, all kinds of stuff like that. Like you can really
absolutely.
It definitely gives you like a whole nother sense of that. So I've always wondered about duos, because like I've always been a relatively solitary producer. I mean, I do collaborate a lot, but it's more like I do music, other people do vocals. Like that's more or less how it works.
Right.
So it's always interesting to hear like how different people approach that, like falling into certain roles, or that you complement each other. And so in this sense, that makes sense coming from your background, because obviously you had a musical background, but like also an arrangement background, and then he sort of had like the technical, maybe production background. And then
absolutely. It definitely just kind of, we met in the middle and like complemented each other's backgrounds and skill set that way.
Okay, just to backtrack a tiny bit. So you mentioned the metal cover band. Did you play in any other bands or like anything like that, or?
Let me think. No, not really. I mean, I played in let me think. Yeah, I played in one in middle school, and then I played in one in high school. So in high school, the band that I was in, we played like Guns N' Roses and the many associated acts of Guns N' Roses. So like Velvet Revolver, all of the Slash sort of discographies. What else? Yeah, I mean, I played in two different bands. One of the one in high school, we had 3 guitarists because like naturally everyone in high school wants to be a guitarist.
Of course.
So we had 3 guitarists. We didn't have a bass player, and our drummer was like the guy who ended up getting the highest marks on the exams at the end of high school, like who was a total sleeper, like completely sleeper pick. I didn't peg him for someone that was like an absolute numbers whiz, but he was the only person in our year that got like a perfect score on his IB exams.
That's just kind of random, I guess, for a drummer.
super random.
For those non-musicians, there's a lot of plenty of jokes about drummers. It's sort of an inside joke with, I don't know, like drummers usually aren't held in high regard, even though they are incredibly important elements in a band. But drummers unite. Okay. So so you're never in a band that tried to do like original work or anything like that. It was always more covers.
Never.
Yeah.
Not until me and Chris started working together. But as soon as we started working together, I knew that it was a natural sort of path that we were on to make original music.
Yeah.
And as soon as we started putting it out, as soon as we started doing it, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. After the first few years of us working together, I could sense that there was like not like a creative differences like rift per se, but just like I think that I understood my taste in music and I understood what I wanted way more so than I ever did prior to that. Like I felt like I was much more going with the flow for the first few years of my career. So I didn't really have a reason not to go with the flow, to be perfectly honest. Yeah. Like it was we were getting shows, and for someone who was like a junior, senior in college, like being paid to play shows on the weekends, like I think it was the craziest thing ever. I had no reason to question it.
Yeah.
And I think that my sense of like originality or my sense of musicality sort of like really only developed like 3 to 4 years into it.
Which makes total sense.
So by the time I had I think so too. Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I think it makes total sense. Like, once I had more of a concrete idea, and this was like post us splitting up in 2018. Like, it took me a long time to understand, to even have an idea of where I wanted to go with the music. And I think that really when I started getting very honest with myself about what I liked and what I disliked about music, then it sort of distilled itself into more of a concrete idea of what I wanted my music to be. And that's kind of what has led to the music I've put out in the last year. Has been more of me singing. Like I used to sing in the bands that I played in.
Yeah.
So like I got into music, I got into the performance aspect of it through singing. So I felt like it was a natural.
So you're
thing
singing
to
like Guns
to.
N' Roses, like
high
pitch,
I was singing Guns N' Roses, I was singing Oasis, all of it. Like I mean, when I was a kid, I had a really high voice. I mean, I still probably do for a guy, but like I was singing all kinds of things, and when I sort of made the decision to get back to that and like try to do that more, it was so scary.
Yeah.
It was the most terrifying. Like I didn't want there to be any evidence of me having a voice. Like I was so petrified.
Especially if you build a project. I mean, I think a lot of your earlier work had like different vocals on it, right? Like with different collaborators. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't like it wasn't pitched as, oh, you're the singer,
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I understood why like a lot of people were caught off guard. Most of my fans were caught off guard, and they were like, okay, like. I mean, like.
I was very pleasantly surprised. Like I love that. I think that was really cool. Like I mean my whole thing was like always like everybody kind of eventually finds their path, right? And kind of develops into their own thing, and so like I always I'm always stoked when I see other people do that, when like they figure out their thing and they kind of lean into it, so I always thought it was really cool, and especially this new material I think is like just such a nice departure maybe, in kind of that direction. And I mean, I guess maybe I don't know that this is public, whatever, but I did a remix for you as well, and that'll come out at some point. But it was like it was very different and super fun to work on that, because it's like a shuffle beat, like there's all kinds of guitar solos and like all this stuff, and And yeah, it was just like it's not what I would immediately associate, at least based on your previous material. But like, I love that that's sort of like that's the direction, you know. And
Yeah, like I think it. I had to do it in order to know that I could do it.
right,
Like for the longest time, obviously when I was a kid, I kind of like had this stars in my eyes kind of attitude towards being a performer or being on stage, and kind of like even though I've started to make and put out music that is sort of me, very me, front and center type energy, where it's like I'm producing all of it and I'm like, you know, getting other people to play instruments on it, but at the end of the day, it's my voice on the record. It's like very much my personality that's being shared. I kind of understand more about how I feel about it as a performer. Like I don't necessarily feel the need to like put it out there that I'm a singer. Like I can do it on my own time, and
right.
like I can auto-tune the shit out of vocals and shit, but I'm not gonna go out there and claim to be a singer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay, so just I guess maybe backing up a little bit to the beginning of the project when it was you and Chris. Like so, like how was that like first release for you? Because because things kind of took off right away, right? Like that's kind of how I remember.
Very quickly.
Like,
which also is a blessing and a curse, I think. Like, we got like the first song we ever put out. Brett, who manages both of us individually
shout out to
now,
Brett in the chat,
he was Chris's manager at the time, and I think he put the remix in some Facebook group of people who like shared music blogs and stuff, and then the person who started this song is sick found that song and he posted it, and then like wildfire, just immediately, like overnight. And I could only imagine like what my parents were thinking about it, because like it's almost like impulsive. Like the second I was like, yeah, maybe I could do this for a living, and it instantly starts going really, really
right.
well. And I was just like, yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, I told you. But the thing is, I feel like something that a lot of maybe younger artists or up and coming artists may not understand is like you don't get to just skip all of the levels in personal and emotional growth that you skip in terms of stats or like play counts or things like that. Those are still levels you have to like. Those are still parts of yourself you have to understand and grow through. That it was almost like a game of snakes and ladders, right? Like we had gotten a ladder on like the first box, on the first checker, or whatever.
Yeah. So you hadn't like, I mean, you hadn't really even experienced any sense of failure, like.
Absolutely not. Yeah, and we had no concept of like. I mean, at the same time, we hadn't really thought through what it was going to be. But that's kind of what made it cool, right? Like I mean, you were talking about Facebook earlier, but I recall in the movie The Social Network, like people not knowing exactly what it is kind of what makes it cool, and that's what made it cool at the time. And like the sort of limitlessness of the possibilities was what excited me so much, and is probably what scared the shit out of my parents. But yeah, I think that it was a valuable experience to have in order to find what I really wanted to do or what I really wanted to make and put out.
No, it's really interesting because like I think there's sort of some parallels with my own career, because I started with remixing. The first one like took off immediately, and suddenly it was like, but I was in bands that were just not going anywhere for years. Like I was like, I got stuck. Like nothing was happening. And then that one remix just took off, and it was like, okay, this is my career now, I guess. Like this is what I do.
Right.
But like I'm actually really thankful for those first maybe 3.5 years of just doing remixes, because it was relatively low pressure. I was sort of figuring out who I was, you know, as a person, as an artist, and all of that, to the point where by the time I put out original stuff, I mean, granted, you guys put out original stuff right away, but I guess what I'm saying is like it took you a couple of years to get into it, to like actually feel like maybe a more sense of ownership. Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, as soon as we started putting out music, it started doing so well. It's like we didn't really have not a moral compass, but like a creative compass, if that makes sense. We just assumed that everything we were doing was great, and that's such an easy trap to fall into when you get a lot of praise showered on you by these blogs who you've been reading all the time and like, dreaming of your music being on there someday, and like all of a sudden all of them are posting your music. And it's a very difficult ego trap not to get caught into.
Yeah, absolutely. You start to believe it.
It's very difficult not to let it go to your head. Yeah, you start to believe it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. That's a nothing in your life can really prepare you for that. That's sort of how I thought about it, because I had maybe a slightly different but like similar experience where, the ride up is amazing, but that mid post first album whatever slump, you're like you think the world's falling apart, and you sort of second guess everything. Is like there's nothing that can prepare you for that. You just sort of have to live through it.
Absolutely. I can't describe like the uncertainty, the doubt, the self-doubt that went through my head post 2018 through probably like late last year.
Right.
It took a really, really long time for me to come to terms with the idea that like the numbers aren't everything, and the numbers will come if you are honest with yourself about your music and like let them handle themselves. It's not so much like you can't really reverse engineer the numbers like you could in 2015 and 2016.
Yeah. Like I think people's like bullshit meter is like a lot stronger these days. Like they can tell if somebody's just faking it. But like, so you brought up an interesting thing, which this is something I think about a lot. Is like how, like I guess like with how do you get that sort of like that? It's not the. How do you get rid of that self-doubt? Like how do you feel like how do you find that sound?
It's so difficult, dude. It's so difficult. I mean, I don't know. I think the most interesting part of this whole journey for me was as I kind of progressed in my nascent career, nascent,
whatever, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Like, as I sort of progressed in my early career, I started becoming friends with the people who I idolized, and like humanizing those people kind of made me understand things a bit better. Like I started to go on tour with people who I like had no preconception of who they were as people.
Right.
Like kind of just have like an image of that person in your head, and you're like, this is that person. And then you start to actually hang out with them, and you're like, oh, everyone's like a normal fucking person, and everyone kind of hates their own music, but kind of loves it. Like, it's an exercise in self-expression both ways. It's like you're not always the best version of yourself, no matter how much or how many people think that you are that person all the time. And sort of like becoming friends with people who are now like my longtime friends, like Jai Wolf and like Imad Royal, people like that, and seeing the ups and downs in their careers as well. And like being friends with them through those ups and downs has sort of, calmed me a little bit, because the rise can be so meteoric, but so can the fall, right? Like so can the next immediate slump.
So the rise is funny because like I remember like on the way up, especially the first time, you just think it's gonna go up forever, and it's so funny.
Yeah, of course.
Like you're like this is great.
Bullet.
I'm good forever. Like I never have to think about this again. I am the best. Like this is.
Spent all of my money on clothes and partying instead of putting it into stocks like I should have.
Too many shopping trips to Balenciaga maybe, but like
oh yeah.
but I guess like to go back a little bit, like to that thing about like writing music or like finding your voice in that, like I think about that a lot of like this is sort of how I dealt with self-doubt, was like or like it's like who am I actually doing this for? Like, is it for myself?
Yeah.
Is it for my audience? Is it for Spotify? Is it for whatever? I think where I landed, it was like, this is clearly for myself. It is a pretty selfish endeavor. But the side effect of that is if I'm true to myself, that everything else kind of works out. So, like, if I'm honest with myself and be like, I legitimately like this, it's sort of like you're kind of bulletproof in a way, Like, like any kind of criticism, it's like, well, okay, you just didn't get it, or it's fine. We just have different tastes.
Yeah, I agree. I think when I put out Head in the Trees a year ago, I felt like I'd never felt before for any other song release. Like I truly didn't care what the streams looked
Hmm.
like. I truly didn't care what anyone else thought about it. I just wanted to like let it be known that that was my essence. Like that was a direct extension of my
Hmm.
personality. And I don't know. I feel like uh, ego dissolution along the way really helps, and like sort of reassessment of your personal investment in your project, right? Like, why are you invested in what you're doing? Like, is it to make yourself feel better by seeing high play
Right.
counts?
Yeah.
Is it like if like as soon as I realized that that's something that innately made me feel good, I was like, okay, this is like a toxic.
Yeah.
This is
It's
a toxic
addictive.
connection to
Like
have.
I,
Very,
I
very
don't think
addictive. Super,
I don't
super
know if people
toxic.
like really talk about this because it's pretty niche, but like that refresh of your SoundCloud account or your Spotify.
Yeah,
Like I mean, even the way they designed the Spotify for Artists app, it buzzes every time you get a new
it
play.
buzzes every
Like
time it
it's
hits the
just that
stream.
little
Oh
hit
my
of
god.
dopamine, I don't think that that's productive. Like for me, it was comments like during the SoundCloud era because I had such a high follower count. Like I would just like I just refresh and get a new comment, and I was like I wanted to I wanted to see that constantly, and it
Uh,
became kind of toxic. Like to the point where like if I got under 200K a day or something like that, I would get pissed, which is
right.
ridiculous. Like completely ridiculous. But
Insane. Like the kinds of things you feel like are indicators of your personal success or like your personal worth,
mhm.
right? Like my personal my sense of self worth was so tied to play counts and so tied to like what people like saw in numbers as soon as they clicked on a page, and I think over the course of a few years, I kind of learned to let go of it begrudgingly, but definitely learned to let go of it a bit. And now it's at the point where I'm just like I look at it just to make sure I know how much money I owe my label.
Right.
You know what I
So
mean?
how
Like,
unrecouped am I today? Okay. All right.
yeah, exactly. Like, how much money left do I have to make my label before they fucking cut me? Um, um, yeah, I feel like sort of separating the two things, separating the public perception of it, and separating what I put into it was a very key sort of indicator of where I stood as an artist.
Yeah.
Um, as soon as I sort of learned to let go of it a bit and learned to sort of just love myself through
Right.
the music, just like just use the music as a you know as a tool to prop myself up, as a tool to like help myself heal, as a tool to express
Hmm.
myself. That's when I sort of noticed that the music itself was getting better, and it getting better in a subjective sense, and like that I was really, really in love with the
Yeah. Yeah.
music that I
Yeah.
was making.
That's kind of like a funny thing because people downplay. I think artists downplay how much they like their own work. But it's like you should
Hmm.
like your own work. I mean, you should pull a Kanye and just like listen to your own music all day. I feel like you should be proud of it. I mean, there's maybe a point where it's it's a bit negative, but you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
it's very easy to be really full of
But
yourself.
like I think you should be proud of it, right? It's like I can't imagine putting out something that I'm not like just into. If it's like what like I wouldn't feel good about that. Like if I'm like that was okay.
Yeah, and I had a very similar sort of like tug of war with myself over the songs that I was putting on this EP that's coming out next week or in a week and a half. And um, this isn't to talk badly on anyone, but I made the 4 songs that are on it, and as soon as I sort of turned them in, they were like, "No, we want 6," and I was like, okay."
Right.
And then so I tried to make I tried for months to make more songs, and like it felt so forced, and it felt like I was compromising on the integrity of the other 4 songs
Right.
that it really like wore me down completely, and I was just like I almost fucking quit
Hmm.
altogether because I was like if I can't make 2 more songs, like that's it.
Right.
Like that's
It,
the
it's
end of
such
the
an
road,
arbitrary
really?
number too.
Yeah.
Like like actually last week when I was talking to Josh, we talked a lot about these sort of like boxes that we're forced into. I personally love the album. I love the long form, artistic expression thing. Like that's my thing. But there are plenty of people that just like to put out singles, and like maybe it's a couple songs that work together. Maybe it's 4 songs. Maybe it's 6. I don't know. But like having that as sort of this arbitrary number to hit, that doesn't seem like that productive.
I agree. I think it's. I think everyone has to just kind of do what they feel comfortable with, and like without remaining in your comfort zone too much. I feel like there's something to be said for a personal sense of how much of you is getting put out into the world.
Yeah, yeah.
But every song of the 4 songs that is on this EP, I'm obsessed with. Like I love all of them, which is cool.
No, as you should. I think that's the way to do it. Like, I mean, it feels so much better when you put that out in the world, and it's just like you're like, it's just like, okay, this is who I am. This is everything that I have, and
yeah, absolutely.
And if people don't get it, I mean, okay, sure, but like,
sucks to suck.
I'm sorry, you're not into it, but I'm into it, so it's like, I mean, that is sort of how I feel about my own records. Like I spend a lot of time with them. I just write a lot until I get something that I'm super proud of, and then just kind of go from it. Do you gravitate towards shorter form stuff? Do you prefer singles? Like, what's your take on that?
I think so. I feel like my sense of like what I want to put out is so ephemeral. Like it's so fleeting for me to want to have a particular direction that I haven't really found a sound that I feel is worthy of me doing more than like 4 songs or 5 songs or something like that. Like maybe in a year, maybe in like 2 years, I don't know, when I'll have a more concentrated, distilled body of work to put out over a longer format. But an album is definitely something I want to make. I just don't feel like I want it right now.
Right, yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean?
You have to be ready for it, right? Or you have to...
Yeah.
It takes a tremendous amount of work. And it's actually kind of tough because you're sitting on this material for so long. I mean, sometimes these songs are like a couple years old. And you're like, you want to share people.
You're forced to listen to them all the
time. Yeah, like, I mean, even stuff that, for example, going back to when we were in Singapore, I showed you a couple tracks that still haven't come out. Like,
Right, and vice versa too. Like, I think I showed you all the EP demos that I had made, and all of those songs are so different now. if they even made it on the EP, I think I showed you like 6 or 7 different things.
Something like that, yeah.
Of which 2 or 3 made it onto the project eventually, maybe 2.
Yeah, but that's what it takes, That's sort of my method. Is I just write as much as I possibly can, and then sort of chop it down basically to something that's semi-cohesive.
I don't think I had any idea how much work this EP would be. Like, truthfully, I was so used to putting out a single every few months or whatever that. Honestly, like now that I think about it, it took me a year start to finish. So, start to like, turning it in.
Right. Yeah.
Was almost a full year, like 10 months almost to the day.
Which is crazy, right?
And it's insane. I figured I was like, I could do this in like 3 months, 4 maybe. Like crank out a song every couple of weeks. But no, like I had to like learn sort of my own personal limits and my own sort of like my speed of working. Right, so I can budget my own time accordingly. Like Mutual and Rush, I think those two. Well, Rush is the only song on the project that is from the original batch of demos that I made, that I showed you in Singapore. So like from that initial demo in June, June of last year to September of last year, I don't think it changed at all.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, sort of in like 2 weeks, within 2 writing sessions, the song was completely different and finished. And the rest of the other 3 songs hadn't even been started yet. They hadn't been started until I came back from India, back to LA, and started doing a bunch more writing sessions, and like really got comfortable with a core writing team that I could rely on to feed off one another. And as soon as I kind of had a good connection and a good relationship with the vocal engineer, because really I knew I wanted to sing, but I didn't know if I could get it to sound like I wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
and that was like the biggest thing holding me back. Also to the chat, yes, I'm Indian.
Yeah.
If that wasn't obvious, I don't know. But yeah, I think once I got a really good like back and forth with my vocal engineer, and who's also like a really talented guitarist. He plays in a metal band
nice.
as well. Like he plays in instantly like he's also Indian, also went to international schools, also lived all over the world, also is into metal. Like the connections are just limitless. We hit it off right away. Anyway,
I
so
love that. Like there's something that anybody that's sort of been into metal, even if they're not currently into it, we all kind of get something. Like there's
there's something about the edge and the complexity, like the weirdness, like something about it like is like it's like a primal sort of thing that we gravitate to. And even the other guy who played most of the guitar the guitars on the song that you remixed also is from a metal background. And so like it kind of happened by complete happenstance that these two people who were super into metal ended up working on this project for me. Also, chat, my project is not a metal project, so you can relax. Like, no need to freak out yet. No need to freak out. No need to unfollow me just yet.
It would be fun to do a metal project, though, actually.
Dude, honestly, like I
think we need to make that happen, actually.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let's do a metal project. Actually, I actually tried. One time I did this. Just as a side note, I did this. I was on a flight, like a cross country flight, and I had like 6 hours to kill, and I did. Like a synth metal track, and it was. I just love that energy. Just the halftime.
Yeah, like I think the metal sense of structure and like how it's very fluid, but at the same time it's somewhat predictable.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's just the right amount of predictable and just the right amount of fluid. Like it's that real hot like towing of the line that I strive for.
Yeah.
I think.
I do actually find some comparisons in like dance music to like structurally because of that sort of like that dynamic range, in between like the quieter parts into like the obviously intense drops or whatever, like I actually look back on those years of like being into metal like as like pretty formative. Like I feel like I learned a lot from that.
I agree. Same.
And still to this day, those are some of my favorite shows I've ever played because the intensity of a metal show is just unlike anything else. Like,
yeah, it's super hard to match. Very, very difficult to beat. I even took my girlfriend to a Trivium show when I go to Thanksgiving at her family's place in Seattle every year, and when I was in Seattle, I think 2 years ago, Trivium was in town, and I think before, like a couple of months before that, I had like. Me and the lead singer from Trivium had Matt Hafey had we connected on Twitter because I think he posted a Sean Wasabi video and I knew Sean Wasabi, so I was like, this is insane. and so Matt followed me back and I hit him up immediately. I was like, hey, I didn't know you were playing in Seattle. I'm here for my girlfriend's Thanksgiving, so like, can I get guest list? and he was like, yeah, sure. So I went to the show and I took Maddie to the show, and like she even enjoyed it. Like she was a very good sport about it. I don't think she's ever been to a metal show in her life, but she really, really enjoyed it, and she could see going to another metal show in her life, which is great. That's all I wanted from that. And for me, it was like I hadn't seen this band since my freshman year of college, which is when I went with like another one of my college homies, and it kind of made me realize that it's not so different to what we do. It's like there's a lot more moving pieces, and as a result, I think the production and the writing and the musicality is really, really intense, and like everyone in the band has to be so high level.
It's like the technicality
there's no room for mediocrity at all. Like I would shit myself being in a room holding a guitar with these fools. Like I would just be like, I can't like hold a guitar near you guys. Like this is too much for me.
Yeah. No, it's.
I would have to like watch them like or engineer them playing guitar. Like that would be a dream.
Yeah. No, it's very intense and like I think a lot of people sort of are dismissive of it in the sense of just like, oh, it's just noise, but like no, there's like so much to it.
I feel like that's such a surface level thing to say.
Yeah. I mean, like, I understand why somebody doesn't just like, yeah, it's Monday morning. Let me listen to some metal. Like, I understand why people don't do that.
Yeah.
but like, if you're, I think if you're a musician, you have to appreciate it. I mean, it's just like it's on a different level. And like, I don't know if you ever got into like prog rock, but like,
Yeah. Like Rush.
For me, it was like Dream Theater and
Oh hell yeah! Oh my god! So Dream Theater is who I saw on tour with Trivium my freshman year of college.
I've seen Dream Theater twice now, and this is back in Portugal, and they did a 3-hour show with a 15-minute intermission, and it was like for me, this mental image that I have is just like a sea of ponytails, like air drumming to everything. It's so good. For like 3 hours straight. I like, but everybody knew every note, like everything. It was like so good, and
which is insane given how complex those songs are.
What's it?
Like the time signatures are constantly changing. It's like the songs are so goddamn long.
The 19-minute, like, you know, magnum opus, whatever. Like, and they play it perfectly. You know, they don't miss a note. It's kind of it.
They're such impressive musicians. It's like it really blows my mind that they can do that, like night in, night out, for a year, and then make music that is completely different to it, but also just as complex and just as difficult to play.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's again, it's not something I put on all the time or anything like that, but just the sheer complexity of it, you know, you have to kind of appreciate it. I saw there was, I'm trying to think of like these other bands that I saw, like Symphony X, like these are like these German prog rock bands, you know, in Portugal, like Symphony X. Like, I feel like I saw Cradle of Filth at some point.
I saw Cradle of Filth in Europe too. Like, I think me and Giraffage had played a show, me, Chris, and Giraffage, and the venue we were playing was it was like a big room and a small room, and we were playing the small room, and Cradle of Filth was playing the big room, like, next to us, an hour after our show ended, and everyone else was so jet lagged they all went to sleep, and I was like, fuck you guys, I'm going to this Cradle of Filth show.
That you have to. I mean, like those album covers are just the most, like, the weirdest thing.
I know, man. And that dude, the singer, Danny Filth, is, like, such a character. Like, it's hard to say, it's so difficult to see him as not this, like, devilish, like, demon-looking dude. So the chat, yes, Coheed and Cambria is amazing. Like, I actually started listening to their stuff again. I like re-listened to what's the name of the album? Good Night. Shit.
Yeah, no, I've definitely got
Burning Star
into
4, yeah,
for a while, and trying to think of, like, I mean, I also got into, I mean, this isn't necessarily metal, but I was really into Deftones. Like, Deftones was like, were you ever into them, or?
I think I was always, like, into the people that were sort of adjacent to Deftones, but I never never got into them really heavy. But yeah, the Coheed and Cambria album that I was talking about is Good Apollo. I'm Burning Star Volume 4. I'm Burning Star 4 Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Incredible album. Like, for a while, for like a month or two, maybe 3 months ago, like, I listened to it every day. It's so good.
Yeah. Okay.
So you were into the Deftones.
Yeah, so Deftones Deftones was actually sort of where I started to get a little bit away from metal. And then, because, like, Deftones, like, kind of unfairly got lumped into nu metal, which I don't think that's really fair, because I think they were a lot more nuanced and a lot more interesting. I mean, they definitely had the heavy nu metal songs, whatever, but they had some, like, especially White Pony had some, like, really interesting songs that were, like, a lot more mellow. And that started, they actually introduced a lot of electronic elements. They had a couple synths and things like that. And that's what was like, oh, okay, let me start to explore this other world, you know, and got into, that was sort of maybe my very first introduction to electronic music. And I'm kind of curious, like, what was your introduction to electronic music? Because everything we're talking about is, like, very guitar rock.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I can take a step back for a second. Let me think. I think, if super honestly, like Linkin Park. I think when I first heard Linkin Park, I think I heard Meteora first, and then I heard Hybrid Theory second. just because I think Meteor was popping off at the time that I heard about them, and then I thought Hybrid Theory was their second album, but I guess it was actually their first one.
LimeWire or Napster or
No. I think my dad bought the CDs. I ended up the LimeWire tapes were like, what did I get on LimeWire? A lot of Family Guy episodes, a lot of accidental porn. It would be like Family Guy season 10 episode 1, and it's like a totally different situation when you open up the video. Right. Kazaa was the first thing I used. Anyway, I think Linkin Park was sort of the first thing, and then after my sort of initial first metal phase, I discovered this stash of like Ministry of Sound compilation CDs that my dad had, and that he had never told me about. And I was like, "What the hell is all this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, you should just check it out." And I think the most ubiquitous dance songs of the decade were on that tape, like Kerncraft 400. And I think when I first listened to that, I think Fake Blood Mars was on that. And so when I first got into those, I was like, wow, this is pretty sick. Yeah. I like it. And in high school is when I wasn't completely honest when I said I started DJing in college, because when I got all of those CDs from my dad in high school, that's when I downloaded Virtual DJ.
Oh yeah.
and it didn't make any fucking sense to me, because I was like, I didn't know anything about DJing. I didn't know anything about software. It was like so far, my learning curve was so steep at the time.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing to just jump into, especially with that software.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially if you don't have any understanding of what DJing is physically, right? It's like you just look at someone doing this.
Right. It's like, what are you doing
on a vinyl, and you're like, what are they doing? Yeah, my dad is pretty awesome.
Yeah. He is. Awesome. I can vouch for that. Yeah.
He's a bona fide audiophile. He spends more money on his audio equipment than he does on like anything else. An absolute madman. After that first Ministry of Sound sort of session that I had, I think it was like maybe a year-long phase, and then I got back into metal. I kind of felt myself like getting bored of electronic music very quickly, because I think I dipped my toe in right into only like the super mainstream stuff. Like it was all the most like corny shit at the time. Yeah. So I had no concept of what underground electronic music was like. I didn't know it existed until later on in college.
Yeah. No, the thing that always bothered me about electronic music is that people called like everything got lumped under EDM, but like most of the stuff you heard that was EDM was kind of shitty. Like it just wasn't very good, right?
Yeah.
So like, so I don't know. Like once you start to go down that rabbit hole and you discover this like wealth of music, like that's the underground stuff, that these entire scenes from the 80s and 90s of just music you had no idea about. That is such a fun rabbit hole to go down and just discover like acid house or
even like early new rave stuff like the Prodigy, Chemical Brothers. Like I think I had a Chemical Brothers album, Hold Tight London, I think is the name of the album, and I think I got that in like 4th or 5th grade or whatever, but listened to it a shitload, like top to bottom, knew every song, and then didn't listen to Chemical Brothers again for 10 years until I went to college. And then I was like, oh, I get it.
Right, Chemical Brothers is awesome, right?
Yeah.
I actually, for me, it was actually video games. Like I discovered like I'm trying to think of like Wipeout on the PlayStation 1 was like had like Prodigy on it, and like a whole.
What was Wipeout? Is that a skating game or
no?
Wipeout
was like a racing game. It was like a futuristic racing game. And also the FIFA series was also pretty cool. They had like a bunch of
FIFA soundtrack has always been really good, except FIFA 20. Yeah. If you're watching EA Sports, you could do better. Hire me to curate your soundtrack.
Fatboy Slim and like stuff like that. That I really started to have like maybe a little bit more of an appreciation for electronic music. So like it's interesting because I feel like Daft Punk is the entry point for a lot of people. But like when did you get into that at all? Like I assume you're into Daft Punk.
I definitely heard. Yeah, of course. Come on, please. Please,
you're like,
sir,
I'm not into it. I don't know. Like,
I think I heard One More Time for the first time when I was a kid, and I loved that song always, and that always was like the Daft Punk song that I knew. But I didn't get into them proper again until college. Like when I went on an absolute download rampage and like got everything they ever did, just because Chris was so obsessed with them. He was like, "You need to listen to more Daft Punk." And so when I was in college, that's kind of when I really dug into them. But even I don't think my appreciation for them grew as much as it did until after I graduated.
Yeah.
Like when I heard Random Access Memories in 2011 or 2010, when did it come out? 2010,
I
right?
think it was more recent than that. I could be wrong though.
2013. Yeah. So this was at the end of my second year of college. So when I heard it for the first time, I was like, I don't get it. Like I don't know if I really like it. Like this is soft. It's really like gentle and like not really what I wanted from Daft Punk. And then I didn't listen to it for like a couple of years. And then when me and Chris went on tour with Giraffage in Europe, I think I listened to just Random Access Memories in the tour bus in the van on repeat for like weeks, for however long we were and it just my appreciation for it just blossomed completely. Like when I watched the interviews, I watched like the Intel Creators series.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah,
on how they did everything, and like I did so much like digging and due diligence even on like what they did to make that album and what it is.
I feel like it's such a love letter to like a specific era, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a like. Imagine if it was like me making a hair metal album, like that's exactly the kind of approach that I would take.
Yeah.
Like if I wanted to achieve it at the highest possible level with the lowest possible like discrepancy, if that makes sense. Like you get the players, you get the equipment, the outboard equipment, everything is like time period correct. And I don't think I appreciated that until like I listened to it 100,000 times.
No, it's like, well, it's funny because I think I was talking about this on the last stream, but it's like it's not what I personally wanted out of a Daft Punk album, but that's okay because I think they did what they wanted to do, which was like an homage to their favorite albums, I think, and I have to respect that, you know. Like there's part of me that just wants them to do, you know, Defunk over and over again, you know, but that's like
or just Discovery 2.0.
That's not, we already have that, you know. That's not, and to be honest, there's like 100 imitators that can probably get it somewhat close, you know. And maybe that's not that interesting. So but yeah, no, I think that album is quite amazing, and especially on a technical level, like what they did to get the mixers, the you know, it's really,
and the fact that they basically like they did like basically MIDI drum racks with 100,000 samples, and like everything on those songs is none of it's like live takes. It's all just like a bunch of different jigsaw pieces that they put together. That's like the most impressive things. That's the most impressive thing for me. It's like that attention to detail, and like I remember, I think when I watched the Georgia by Marauder one, he said something about there being like 3 vocoders in front of him, and the engineer was like, "You're not gonna be able to tell the difference, but Giman and Toma will be able to tell the difference."
Which is
like they'll be able to tell the difference
to say that to Georgia Marauder, literally the guy that like popularized that sound, you know.
Popularized since,
yeah. I mean, but I think that to some degree that happens. Like I put myself in Giorgio's position. Like at the time, that was a technology that he had. He was sort of like, it was a tool like anything else. He just used it, and it became such a quintessential part of his sound that he became so associated with it, and and that maybe he doesn't even care about it that much. It was just like a tool, you know. Like it's always interesting to see people like make music like, you know, 20 years later, like the Brian Enos of the world, the new Georgia Marauder stuff, or like whatever. It doesn't always have the same appeal. I mean, like as long as they're happy with it, that's fine with me. But like, you know, it's I sometimes I cling on to like that like what that era, what they did. I don't know, like like I haven't actually heard a lot of the new Georgia stuff, but like I don't know. Like I can't imagine him being that picky about vocoders at that point of his life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the dude played at Crossed Festival like a couple of years ago and closed his set with Titanium by David Guetta. Like, The dude is doing whatever the fuck he wants, and I
Shout
love
out
it
to his
for that.
family.
Oh my god! Oh my god! So shout out to his family. I can't believe it. The nerve of some of these people. I swear to God.
No, I know. I'm kind of making fun of him. I mean, I think like to give him a little bit of credit, I think he meant well. By the way, we're talking about David Guetta. Like he was doing the set, and he said shout out to George Floyd's family. Like as he drops like this remix, and it was like very.
I think it was a song with a Martin Luther King Jr. Speech sample in it, which was like
just read the room a little bit.
Read the room, man.
To be honest, to be fair, I do think he meant well, but like a little bit.
But like someone on his fucking PR team should have been like, dude, maybe don't do that.
But again, I feel like I'm defending him, but he did raise like $500,000 for charity or something like that. So okay, whatever. Like we can move on from that. But like, yeah, I just love shout out to his family, like that, like the ultimate cringe thing.
Let me adjust my head.
It's fun because it's like getting kind of blurry with your camera effect. Like your hair gets blurry when you. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I look like a fucking mad person. I told my Twitter followers I wasn't gonna get a haircut until we get a COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
And my parents are none too impressed about that either.
Okay, switching gears to Warzone. How's that going?
It's going real good. I want to know what my dub count is. I mean, I should just open the app, but then I think our call will get screwed up. Dude, I don't know. I feel like I used to play so much FIFA, and FIFA is such an endlessly unrewarding game for the amount of effort you put into it. Like, just the way the game is engineered.
Well,
like,
there's a lot of like microtransactions and stuff like that, right? Like, yeah.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's in every game, but like, the problem that that FIFA has is like, there's something called dynamic difficulty adjustment, which anyone who plays FIFA knows what this is, but like, it basically means the game gets harder if you're playing too well, or it gets easier if you're playing
like Mario
poorly.
Kart, right? Like if you're in
Is that a
like
thing?
if you're in last, you're more likely to get like one of the like the red shells or like something like that. Like, yeah.
Right. It's almost exactly like that, right? It's like the game will manipulate moments and stuff in order to like even it out.
Yeah.
So for hardcore players, former hardcore player like me, like what's the point of investing that much time and getting good at this game if you don't know whether you're actually getting good at it or if it's benefiting you? So as soon as I haven't played FIFA in like months, dude. I played FIFA for like 15 minutes a week ago, and it made me so angry I like turned my PlayStation off, put it in my closet.
Did you play online at all, or was it like?
Yeah. I was playing almost exclusively online, and also FIFA is like such a toxic community of gamers. Like any online gaming community is like as toxic as it gets, but like EA is such a terrible company that they just engender such toxicity in their fan base.
It's like the crowd that they attract, just like
yeah. They just they don't make it easier on themselves either.
I feel.
So yeah, I stopped playing FIFA, and then I picked up Warzone, and I feel like all I've been doing is playing Warzone for the last few months.
It's funny to say that because like you're comparing the Call of Duty community to the FIFA community, which Call of Duty technically, I mean, is like definitely down there in terms of toxicity, you know. But I guess you don't really interact with them that much, you know, because over the mic or whatever. You're usually just like in a squad or like in Warzone.
It's party chat.
It's fine. No, but anyway, we've been playing here and there, but it's been pretty fun. I'm kind of curious. Like, have you had songs in video games yet, or like?
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe had a shot at FIFA, but I don't know about now.
I mean, dude, EA Sports, cut me a check.
It's in the game, but like
EA Sports in the game.
I've been, for me, it's kind of a trip because like I grew up playing FIFA as well. Like I started with FIFA '98. Like again, like very long time.
Dude, same. That was the first one I got.
Like Blur. That like I think it was Blur.
Song 3, Song 2.
Song 2 and Fatboy Slim and Right About Now. Yeah, and it like but like okay, so the FIFA soundtrack was always like this thing. like it was such a big deal, like in all the FIFA series. And a couple years ago, I mean, this was like 2016 for me. I got a song in the FIFA series, and the fee was actually quite low. I was like, okay.
Right, because you're doing it for the
Yeah,
exposure.
yeah. It was like, okay, but it's the FIFA series, and they know that too. And
Yeah, that's their leverage.
and to be honest, I took it. It's fine. And the level of like engagement that I get to this day, I get a comment, like probably like 10 comments a day on my YouTube page, like, who's here from FIFA 2016, or like people comment like, this is the best FIFA. It's like, people just like. It's so funny, like the soundtrack in that community is like so specific. I don't know why that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the game is huge, especially outside of the U.S. But like, was that the case like growing up for you? Was it like a part of like, because a lot of people just associate FIFA with like the only video game that people play,
Yeah, I mean, for most people who play FIFA, it's like the game they play more than anything else. Because football is like the most popular sport in the world because it's the best, but that's not the point. I think when I was growing up, the only games I played were every subsequent FIFA game and like an assortment of some sports games here and there. Like I would play the Tiger Woods games like from I think 2013 or whatever onwards. I think I had NBA Live 2005. Nice. Which was like the last EA basketball game I got, with like the dunk contest and everything.
Yeah. Did you ever play NBA Jam by any chance? Or is that's a bit older?
No, I didn't. No, I did play NBA Street.
Oh yeah.
NBA Street was a lot of fun. Also, Tony Hawk games were incredible.
Another amazing soundtrack too, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the full game to drop in a week or something, or 2 weeks. I think it comes out a couple of days after my EP, so that's going to be my present to myself. I'm going to buy it. I already bought it, so I already bought myself a present. But I think every Tony Hawk game had the best soundtrack. It was so perfect for like teen angst and like teen aggression. It was just like everything that I was feeling at the time.
I just remember doing like one combo the entire game. It was just like like once you just played it so much, so you could just string things together and just constant like but the soundtrack, like I don't even remember who the artists were, but it was such a specific thing. I'm trying to think of like other like important soundtracks for me, but like it was I guess it was like the FIFA like Wipeout again with like Prodigy, stuff like that. Do you have any others like video game soundtracks that like were kind of influential in any way?
Do you ever play the game Road Rash?
Oh, yeah, like Soundgarden and like,
yeah. I want to build my rusty cage.
Oh my god. Yeah, with the like.
That was the first time I heard Soundgarden.
This is so messed up, but hitting grandmas with your
with chains and shit. Like you had like chains and like clubs and shit.
Oh my god.
Road Rash is the OG like racing.
I have this specific memory of my dad. Okay, I got this computer and my dad. Like the minimum RAM requirement for the game was 16 megabytes of RAM, and my dad was like, I remember this memory is like, why would you ever need 16 megabytes of RAM? So I'm like, really funny right now, obviously, but no, Road Rash was amazing, so good. Like, I forgot about that.
What was another? I think another song that was on that, Sucker Pin by Mode Selector. Great song, great soundtrack. GTA, I wasn't really allowed to play. Like, I would only play GTA at my friend's house. So in Singapore, I lived next door to this Finnish guy, and he obviously like this is a stereotype completely, but like white parents just let you do whatever the fuck you want. Apparently, when you're a kid, you can just play any game that has any amount of murder and cursing and shit in it, and your parents would be like, "Oh, it's just a video game." So whenever I would go to his house, we would play GTA Vice City all the time, and so I played GTA a bunch with him, and then like I think I told you this when you were in Singapore, but on my 12th birthday, one of my friends bought me GTA San Andreas for PS2, and we were all sitting in front of the TV, like me and like 8 of my friends playing GTA San Andreas. My mom walked in, she saw what was on the screen, ejected the disc from the PlayStation, and snapped it in front of me.
That's so funny.
like crushing me in that moment. But fortunately at the time, I had a PlayStation that was chipped, so you could play like pirated games.
Remember.
So the game cost.
I remember
like
that game.
Like
everybody had this like sketchy dude that was like, yeah, I can get you a chipped PlayStation. It was like a thing.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I felt so crushed. Like I didn't have the balls to ask my parents to buy me GTA ever again. Until I like bought my own PS4 and bought GTA 5, and I was like, hey, Mom, look at me.
I wonder if I actually wonder if that was like, if that was common in the U.S. because like, you know, I think maybe growing up in a different country where piracy was like, I mean, it was definitely acceptable in the U.S., but like it was kind of a different, like it was kind of the norm, like outside of the U.S. maybe. And
very much the norm. Even in like in Jakarta, like all the malls, there were like on the ground floor of every mall. You know how there'd be kiosks for like selling sunglasses or like knickknacks and shit. There were kiosks where dude would sell you like a folder of games for like $50, and you would get like 50 to 60 games. You would just be like, I'll take this whole folder.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, so the like I'm trying to think of like, yeah, the whole chip scene. Like I just remember even with like PC gaming, like I always had this one kind of sketchy dude that like you'd pay him, I don't know, like like $50 or whatever, and you get like this DVD full of like all these like downloaded like RAR files, like and you never knew quite what you were getting, and it was just like, here's a bunch of random games, hope you like them, you know. So I remember like one game that I asked my dad. I was relatively young. I had just got my PC, and I asked my dad for Duke Nukem 3D. I don't know if you ever played this, but definitely not definitely like, you know, for older kids or whatever. And my dad didn't know what he brought home, and he just like, oh, actually, my brother's in the chat. He said the Juarez MIDI launcher music. That? I love that,
dude. That was like soundtrack to my childhood.
Those like launchers and the keygens were actually like pretty amazing.
Right, to be the guy who made those beats.
Keygen beats, actually that's great. I should dig some of those up, because that's like a whole scene. I mean, people obviously remember it, but it was like a whole world. Oh man, piracy.
I remember like the first time I owned a FIFA game was like my computer had. I don't think my computer had as good a good enough graphics card or something, but it was all like grayscale and white. It was like almost like looking at a film negative.
Yeah.
And so I was like so mad that I would save my money and buy the game over and over again. And so I ended up buying FIFA 2000 4 times. Until I realized the problem was with my computer and not with the CD.
Oh my god!
I was just like, I'm just getting cracked games. I'm just getting fucked up games every time. Like
that whole scene was like, did you? I don't know if did you ever have or try downloading stuff like through dial-up at all, or like?
Oh yeah, I mean I still remember dial-up internet.
Because I remember I would download ROMs for the N64 emulators. So like I remember it took me like 2 days to download like a Zelda, I don't know, like a Zelda like Ocarina of Time ROM that was like 36 megabytes. It would take me 2 days, and then it was one of those times where if somebody like called, it would knock you off, you know, like. And so I finally got this like software that, you know, it was like you could resume it. You know, and that was like a big deal. It's like, oh, okay, now it's like safe. I can do this. Did you ever play like Half-Life or anything like that, or is that?
Yes. I played Half-Life a bunch. I don't think I ever played it by myself. So like I only ever played it with like friends who had the game. I never had the game myself. What was the 2 other games that I played a bunch on PC? One was Prince of Persia, the 2D version. Yeah. Like the side to side, like, you know, the OG Prince of Persia, Pop 2. I played that to death. And then, Shrike GG says Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Phenomenal game. Phenomenal game. all of the Wolf games were so good.
Yeah, like that was definitely like early, when I had like a 486 or like early Pentium PC. It was like all those games. I actually want to kind of open it up to any questions in the chat and see if we can get some questions in here. I kind of ran out of time last time on the last stream, so I just wanted to make some time for that.
Sure. Run it back.
But I guess like lately it's been really fun, getting into Warzone and maybe a little bit of Apex. Like actually, I felt pretty proud of myself because I played the first season of Apex, or sorry, the 6th season of Apex that just came out, and I just jumped in like a random lobby with like 2 other people, no mics, no nothing, and we actually won. And it was like I am a god. I'm so good at this game.
I'm the best.
And then the next game immediately got destroyed. Like
right. Dude, I would play more Apex if the matchmaking was better. Like if there were more people playing it, I would totally be playing it more.
Yeah, it kind of dropped off a little bit. I mean, obviously there's a lot of competition. Have you played Fall Guys at all?
Yeah, I have, and I don't really get it.
I mean, it's kind of funny.
Like I played it a couple of times. It's just funny. Like I would get that so that my girlfriend and I would have something to play together.
It is that
like,
kind of game.
It's definitely more on her wavelength.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The skill. It's not a massive like skill requirement, I guess.
Yeah. But I think it's so much more universal. Like anyone can play that
right.
game. So like my girlfriend who's not really a gamer, like the only games she plays is like The Sims.
yeah.
So that's like, for somebody like that, I feel like Fall Guys is perfect as an entryway to like get into skill-based games.
Yeah. In a couple months, she'll be like dropping in on Warzone, carrying
I know. I'm trying to. No, I have no hate for The Sims. I love The Sims. Motherload cheat all day.
Yeah.
All day. So I have no hate for The Sims, but I'm trying to convince her to let me build her a PC.
Yeah.
For her birthday.
You got to do that.
So like
water cooled.
I think I'm gonna try to build her like a micro ATX, like one of the little. It's gonna be like the size of an Xbox 360.
Nice.
So like, I'm gonna try to build her one of those so that she can drop into the AO with us.
Superstore or actually, I wish I need.
So guys say they want to take you shopping and then take you to Superstore.
Yeah, no, that's the way to go. No, I've been having a lot of fun with it. I played a lot of Call of Duty like in the early what's it called, like Modern Warfare 2, like that was more my jam, and I would just I'm not a great Call of Duty player, but I love the fast-paced stuff, so I'm like shotgun akimbo, whatever, like running around with 2 shotguns, right. Like just or just running around with a knife. Like I love the troll,
right.
Like I love being the troll. I don't care about KDR. Like I just want to I want to make somebody really mad.
Make them really angry.
And there was one Call of Duty where after you killed them for a second, you could hear their mic. It like turn on their mic for a second.
Yeah, that's still a thing in Warzone now. If you have your game chat enabled, it'll give you that.
The game chat, right? That makes sense. Usually I'm in like Discord,
yeah.
But I love that feature because they're just like, God.
Every now and then, like, fuck this game! I hate this game.
They get so angry
like,
about it.
The other day, I think I was playing against someone the other day, and I've never heard someone scream so loud in my life. Like, god damn, dude. Take this game a little less seriously. Maybe.
Shout out to Kids Waste in the chat. He carried us last time we played, and we were doing like some, I don't know, like I jumped on one of your lobbies like a few a while ago.
I think we played Apex, right?
That's right. I think we did play Apex. Okay, so what I think what I'm gonna do now is I feel bad, like, because I'm actually a terrible host. I have to run to the bathroom, and I'm gonna leave you with the chat for like 2 minutes, and,
right.
And you got this. I mean, you're a streamer. You got this. Like,
sure. All right, chat.
All right, I'll be right back.
Chatsworth, what games have y'all been playing? Chad's Wallop. What do I do to find inspiration? A bunch of different things. I think a lot of times it's just listening to music. and like not trying to get caught up in the idea that you have to make something. Um, for me, like a lot of the difficulty in making something that I like comes in the fact that I go into it with the preconception that I have to make something that I love, and it's a little difficult to do that, and it's a little difficult to always make something you like. 99% of the time, it's always something I hate, but like the 1% of the time that it's something I love is what's worth it. So for me, it's to find inspiration. I do all kinds of things like watch movies, listen to music, watch movies that I haven't watched in a long time, watch new movies, old movies. Um, Ego dissolution really, really helps without advocating for illegal drugs. You know what I mean. Yeah, open your third eye, see God, say what's up, and sometimes that helps too. Sometimes that kind of like resets your emotions, resets your internal compass, if that makes sense. That's kind of what I do for inspiration. Sometimes I just take a break, and I'm just like, I'll just not make music for a while. Hey, what up?
Yo, how professional of me. How's it going?
It's going good. Chilling. They just asked me what I do to get inspiration, and I said I open my third eye.
Oh, I see. I guess like I'm kind of maybe just to kind of jump off of that question, like do you rely on inspiration, or is it like, or is it sort of like?
I feel like I do. Like honestly, I have a really hard time getting myself to make music unless I'm really inspired to. Like I know somebody I really respect, somebody whose work ethic I really, really respect is Felix Cartal, because his whole ethos is that you show up.
Yeah.
Like showing up is the hardest part. Like getting opening Ableton and looking into the void, screaming into the void. Sometimes the void screams back at you, which is like the hard part. Sometimes you're just like looking at it and you're like, I suck at music. I'm the worst, and I'm never gonna make another song I like ever again. And then all of a sudden, like accidentally, you make something and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna keep doing this now.
Yeah. And sometimes you get really stoked about something.
To the chat, somebody in the chat said, accidentally making something that sounds like another song. Oh my god, I used to make fun of Chris all the time because Chris, for a long time, he was making a lot of music in the same key as Kygo Firestone. And so anytime he would send me a beat, I would like FaceTime him and like start singing Firestone over it. And he'd be like, see, stop, dude.
That's so annoying. My wife actually does something similar. She has perfect pitch actually. And
Wow.
It's impressive, but it's also like really annoying. She's like, oh, that's just like that other song. I'm like, God damn it! Like you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's a blessing and a curse to notice things like that, right? Like a lot of times when my roommates show me music and I'll be like, oh yeah, this really sounds like that.
It's like no,
they're like,
no,
listen to it, and they're
then
like,
I can't unhear it. It's so frustrating.
I can't unhear it exactly.
It's so frustrating.
Never unhear it.
I mean, I feel that. I like the I think it's important to like show up, kind of like what you're saying. There was one, I honestly forget who it was. It was probably like some YouTuber or whatever that was talking about music production, and he said something that like really stuck with me, which is that like yeah, just like work on something every day, but even if you're not writing something new, like work on plugins, make a preset, like do something.
Make a preset.
Like you never know, you might be inspired, and like don't it's never going to be a waste of time. You'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuck with me. I kind of had the benefit of like remixes really forced me to do like I had deadlines. I was getting paid. Like I need to do this on time. It really kind of instilled like a work ethic or like a framework for me to do things quickly. I guess.
Same. That's kind of what remixes did for me too. Like it gives me sort of like it makes it less open-ended because you're already working with a structure. You're already working with sort of some predefinition of what the song is going to be, and you don't have to like manifest it out of thin air entirely.
Yeah. It's really kind of already there. You just need to sort of rearrange it.
Yeah, exactly. But on the flip side of that coin, right? On the flip side of like making stuff every day, like the potential for burnout is something that I'm acutely sensitive to. And a lot of times, like I'll go for I'll go like 3 weeks like making music night and day. Like when I wake up, I'm at my computer until I fucking go to sleep for like 3 weeks on end. And then for 6 weeks after that, I don't even look at Ableton. Like I can't even open it. Like because it just feels like it's not what I want to do. It's not natural. It's not calling to me like it is on other times.
Yeah.
And something that I feel like I've grown to have an understanding of is that like there's peaks and valleys in your creative energy, right? And as I feel like as my career proceeds, the peaks get shorter and the valleys get longer. So now what I do is like when I'm peaking in my creativity, I shut everything else out. I'm like, sorry, my manager, I'm not going to respond to your emails for a few days. Sorry, my parents, I'm not going to be on FaceTime for a few days. Sorry, everyone. Like everyone can fuck off for a few days while I just like get stuck into this black hole for a little while. But yeah, how I deal with burnout is probably how everyone else does. It's like you have to airplane mode life for a little bit to like you have to go back and forth. Like for me, it's like airplane moding life to work on music, and then airplane moding music to like work on my life. I feel like my self-care takes such a toll when I'm working on music all the time. Like I'll forget to clean my room, I'll forget to do laundry, I'll forget to eat. Like I'll eat like once a day for like a week straight, and I'll like wonder why I'm so cranky and shit.
Right. Yeah.
And then at the end, I'm like, oh, it's probably because I haven't been eating enough or like sleeping enough and shit.
Yeah, the sleep is a big deal. If you're not getting a decent amount of sleep, it'll affect everything else. It's so true. Like when I'm going through like a similar creative period, I'll stay up till like 3 or 4 in the morning just working on stuff, and then be up at 9 in the morning, and then wonder why like I burn out. It's like, well, of course, Actually, there was kind of like Beth was asking, what's the longest amount of time that you've taken a break?
Right now.
Yeah.
Right now, it's probably been like 3-4 weeks since I made something new, and part of it was because I finished the EP and turned it in. I really like consciously wanted to take a break from it, just to sort of like let my sort of creativity reset a little bit before I sort of make what I perceive to be the next iteration of what Hotel Garuda should be. But yeah, sometimes it's like a day, sometimes it's 2 days, sometimes it's a month, like. And it feels good. Like it feels good to like come back to Ableton with like the want to make something. And, like need to do it. Like that's what I need. Like I need to have that urge to make something. And if it's not there, I have a hard time forcing it. Like I'm not one of those people that like can just turn on Ableton and whip up beats like one after another. Like there are kids like Freddie from Louis the Child and Weethan. Like those are dudes that are just I think they're creativity is so fresh for them because they're so much younger. It's not as filtered as it is for somebody like me. Like, we're 28 years old and they're like 22, 21, and it's so much less filtered for them than it is for me. Like they're just like it's like turning a tap on for them. And for me, it's more like holding a bucket under a tap, hoping the tap turns on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying though, because like I'm kind of the same way, especially with original work. I just put out an album, kind of like I think like I'm taking kind of a break from that, at least for a second, to regroup and come back with like a theme that actually makes sense musically. Like I'm not trying to force it. Like I think it'll come with time. I mean, I have a couple ideas, but I'm not like. A lot of people were like, "Oh, like COVID times, I'm going to write so much music." I'm like,
absolutely fucking not. Like,
no, I mean, I've actually put a lot of energy into like streaming, which has actually been kind of fun. How has that been for you? Like, have you enjoyed it? Like, or is it kind of like some more of a like, maybe
it's definitely more of a hobby for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't foresee it being like a mainstream of revenue by any means. And I think realizing that sort of like let me take my foot off the gas a little bit for it, because I think I was definitely trying to force it a little bit. And I feel like
you had like a schedule, and like it was like
I had a schedule, and I was like doing stuff every day, and I kind of had to take a step back and realize like, okay, I don't necessarily want to be a streamer. Like that's not what I want to define me. And I'm okay doing that, every now and then for fun, like with my homies, like when I'm doing DJ sets or, playing Warzone with my friends and stuff. I'll stream that because it's
10-hour stream.
yeah, like 10-hour, 11-hour DJ sets. Like, but I feel like my socializing skills get really hampered. Like it kind of like overloads my brain to be streaming for a long time at once. And especially because like I'm really self-conscious about making music in front of other people. Like I have a really, really hard time making music on stream, like without it being contrived to some sense.
I had like I just tried it the other day. I mean, okay, so like what I typically do on my streams isn't quite like pure creation. I mean, it's maybe a little bit of improvisation, but that's it. But like I started a remix like live on stream, and that was like like I think maybe here and there I'll do it. I don't know if it's like something I want to do all the time, but like it's pretty interesting to like be in that sort of safe creative space and then just like turn it on for an audience. It's like, hey, come check this out. Like it's kind of weird.
Come hang out with me. It's like there's 30 people in the studio or like 100 people in the studio with you.
It's like kind of weird. And then you have like there was always like this one just kind of this funny German dude that like popped in, Thunjar I think was his name, and he was just like 9. It's terrible. The EQ is totally off, and I'm like, oh my god, like ban, like I mean that was like a funny example, but like it throws you off your game. It's like I'm not here to like ask your opinion, dude. Like I'm actually just like trying to be creative and do my own thing and kind of forget that you're here, So
yeah, like I think it's backseat producing is something that I'm only comfortable with backseat producing like with 3 people, like, and all 3 of them are the people I live with. Like I have a really hard time like producing with anyone else besides the people I live with. In person, especially like in person, if it's somebody I've never worked with before, but if I've listened to their music a bunch, then I'm so in my head. I'm like every single move I have to make has to be perfect.
Right. There's no room for error, right? Like
Absolutely not. Yeah, there's so much pressure, especially like in writing sessions. If you're, I'm not the kind of person to like write and produce at the same time. Like, it's really, really difficult for me to do that. Like some people I know that can like, make a beat and write the song at the same time. It's really difficult for me to do that. Like I prefer it if I'm in a session and somebody else is writing the song over something I'm producing at the same time. And then like I take a pause and be like, okay, how can we work the song around what I'm making, or how can I work what I'm making around what the song is becoming? And it's pretty malleable like that.
Yeah.
But I find it really difficult to just go into like beat making sessions with other producers. Because it's just like so open ended. It's like you could literally do anything, and there's so like your label's reputation is riding on that 1 hour of your life, or like your manager's reputation is riding on like you doing something insanely impressive in that 1 hour.
Most of the time, you're not going to get anything really that usable out of it, to be honest.
Absolutely. There's such high expectations, and like so rarely are they even close to being met.
Yeah, no, okay, I'm actually kind of curious about the writing session thing. Like, do you do a lot of that, like for other people, or like, or for your own project? Like, what?
No, I mean, I've never done a lot of writing sessions for other people. Like, I've done sessions with the intent of making songs that aren't for me, but I have a really hard time finding gratification doing that. For my EP, I did all of them were in-person writing sessions. And that was really therapeutic for me because the EP is something I was so personally invested in that I needed to be completely sure that the people I was working with were as invested as I was. So developing sort of like a core team that I would work with, which is Dev, who co-wrote all the songs on my EP and engineered all my vocals. Wes, who did guitar on Olivia. Connor, who played keys on a bunch of them. Justin, my roommate, who played keys. Midoka, who co-wrote and co-produced with me. It's really like it takes a village to raise a child. In that, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a single thing that I've made that has been an entirely solo effort.
Right.
And I don't feel ashamed of that. I don't feel any sort of sadness or madness that none of this was achieved entirely by myself. Like, I don't have any delusions of being a James Blake or a One Tricks Point Never, somebody like that. It's like, and my process is not insular in nature, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like for other people, it's
there's certainly nothing to be ashamed about, like working with a group of people. I think that's the way to do it. I mean, like it sort of keeps some of your craziness in check, to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It takes somebody saying, like, maybe that's not the snare. Like, maybe that's not the kick you want to use. Maybe that's not the chord you want to hit next. Like,
you might be surprised by the ideas that other people bring to the table. It's kind of naive to think that you have all the good ideas.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not true.
100%. And it's also like working with good friends is just the best, because I feel like we're at a level with one another where we can call each other out on our bullshit, and we can be like, dude, I liked what you were doing 5 minutes ago, but I don't like it now. So just like take it a step back, or like without feeling like you're stepping on toes or like offending someone irreparably.
Right.
Like I would be like, I feel like that in a writing session where like I've been in writing sessions with people I respect a lot and like who have crazy credits and stuff, and it felt like such a drag the whole time I was there, because I think just because I had built up the idea of what I thought this person was going to be like in a writing session, without dropping names. Like me and Chris, when we started working on our EP together, like this was a year before the split, so we were starting to take sessions, and we had a session with this really, really big singer-songwriter, and she had been featured on ostensibly the biggest song of the summer that year, and we had a writing session with her and another producer who we really, really love, and we went into it expecting like, oh my god, this is it, this is our ticket, this is our ticket to the big time, and
our big hit,
and like, yeah, right, this is it, this has to be it. And then 3 days later we were just like pulling our hair out because she just did not want to come our way on any of the things, and she just was like so stuck in her process that she didn't want to like really make it a collaboration.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And that really burned me, and like really like caused me to second guess the writing process and the collaborative process. So I feel like working with people you trust, working with people you're comfortable with is a blessing. Like that's really what I strive.
Some of my most successful songs were written with like college friends, or just people that don't have like the big name in the industry or whatever. Like sometimes that cohesion is actually what you're looking for, not like, I don't know, like how many cuts this one person had on Rihanna's latest album or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Which there's people that play that game. I've been,
and more credit to them, because like that's their way of like leveraging their talent, and I respect that. Like I respect the capability of people who are like, who list their credits in their Twitter bio. You know what I mean? Like you're like you see their page, and you're like, oh, this person is that person.
Right. Yeah.
So like I gotta be with the shits if I'm coming to them with my beats.
Right. Yeah.
They command a certain level of competency, a certain level of I don't know.
Yeah.
Grind, I guess. I don't know what it is, but
like
a certain level of gravitas, I should say.
Like I'm just kind of thinking about like even just in my original work, like getting vocals from other people. Like sometimes I've had the opportunity to work with like some of my idols, like people that I really admire, and those have been some of the people that disappointed me the most, because they just kind of half-assed it and like weren't that invested in it. But then I got this amazing song from this young artist that nobody knows, that just killed it and like put a ton of effort into it, and like it's just far more meaningful and far better music. So like I put so much less weight on the name, at this point. It's just not important. I've been, the reason I've kind of been talking, like bringing this up, is because I've worked with a couple different, I've been doing a lot of writing sessions, I guess, like kind of loosely. I think like everybody's just bored during COVID, and they're like, okay, we'll do some writing sessions, and it's remote. So I'm like meeting people over Zoom, and like we're just trying to like,
oh, that shit is so difficult.
It's weird.
Dude. Writing sessions over Zoom and Skype are just impossible. They're so difficult. It's so difficult to like catch a vibe.
Yeah. Like what I have had good luck with is like, hey, I have a couple demos. let's talk about what you're looking for. Maybe I have something like that, and then they go back and they do it on their own time, and I get something back, and it's like, oh, okay, this is great. Like, that works.
Yeah.
They're like taking a step away from that. Like, it's kind of ridiculous to think that you're gonna get, this amazing song in like 4 hours, like 3 or 4 hours or whatever. It's just not how.
Especially with latency. With
It's so awkward.
Oh my god, it's such a
Everybody's
mess.
talking over each other, like. It's just weird. So like but even early on, like I definitely preferred the like. I guess my method was always like, okay, let me work on the instrumentals. Let me come up with a bunch of ideas. Here's 10 different ideas. Have fun. Take your time. Take a month.
Yeah.
Take 2 months. I don't care. Like, spend as much time as you want on it. And I feel like that's actually got me the best results, because people just, either they gravitate towards something or they don't. And then either they half-ass it, or I get something like kind of,
Or they whole-ass it,
or I get something amazing. And I don't know. I that's sort of been my experience with writing with other people. But again, to kind of circle back to your earlier point, like, there's absolutely no shame at all with working with more people. You should work with as many people as you can. Like, I think it's a fantastic thing. This idea of like,
and I think
working
it helps
alone
you like
is kind of boring to me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely get bored of working on stuff just by myself, because also, like, you're... Oh, hello, cat. What up? Maddie, look at this cat.
Oh.
Wait. It's gone.
Hey, Bobo.
Is that
This
Bo
is
or
Bo.
Juno?
He's very
That's
mad.
Bo, okay.
He's very mad that I'm not feeding him right now. But that's fine. He's a cat.
Oh, somebody asked me what my shirt was. This is actually a brand called Online Ceramics. An excellent brand.
Great
I
name.
love them. Very socially responsible. They make all of their tie-dye pieces one by one by hand. Highly recommend checking them out. They're great.
Okay, there was a question about Splice. Do you
Love Splice. Absolutely adore it.
what's your workflow in terms of like incorporating samples and like that type of thing? Do you?
I try not to use melody samples from Splice, because I feel like that's cheating a little bit. But that's only like a personal thing. I don't grudge anyone else for using melody samples from Splice, because if it enables you to make your best shit, then why the fuck not? Like, there's no reason to not.
I feel the
use
same
melody
exact way.
samples.
Sometimes when you say that, people like, whoa, sampling has been around. It's like, well, it's not that. It's a personal thing. Like, I just feel a little more creative. That's all. Like, I like the craft of creating something from scratch. It's more fun.
For melodically, it's a big deal for me to make things from scratch, even though that's where I feel like my main creative insecurity is in terms of writing chord progressions and writing melodies, is because I just don't have a theory background. I don't have a formal background in music, so I'm really like grasping at straws when I'm making chord progressions, and I'm just hoping something.
Well, that's
sticks,
really interesting, because like I feel like like the stuff that you're writing is like actually quite quite interesting. Harmonically, it's not like. It's not your starter chord set. Let me put it that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is great.
I feel like that. I think that only happened because of my lack of theory background, my lack of classical background. Like, sort of, in a sort of roundabout way, affected my writing process, and like the way I think about chords and the way I think about harmony. It's because I don't have a sort of preconception of like what a chord is supposed to do next, or what like the next chord is supposed to be. Like, I'll just do it, and if it sounds right, then I'm like, all right, then fuck it. It sounds good.
It's not like you hear this note. It's like, oh, well, that works in the key of F and whatever. It's not,
exactly.
Like, you just.
It's not like I'm googling like notes in this key or like chords in this key and like just like hoping to plug them in and hoping they work.
Yeah.
But dude, a lot of times, like for me, because melody is something I struggle with, or harmony is something that I struggle with off the scratch, it's really helpful for me to work with people who are really talented keys players or guitar players, because it gives me some sort of like foundation to build my strengths on. Like, my strengths are really like drums and arrangement.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I love drum. I feel like every producer is like, when you're collabing with someone, it's really like a competition over who does the drums the most. And it's like,
it's the best part.
It's
the most fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's the most fun part. It's like, so yeah, when I'm doing stuff for my own personal work, it's like I let somebody else sort of like take the wheel when it comes to the guitar line or like the chord progression, and I'll be like, all right, I can take that. I'll do that with my own drums and stuff. Yeah. And yeah, like I feel like drums are the easiest way for me to really truly channel what I love or what I'm currently like influenced by. Like the song that you remixed, Olivia, right? Like it's got that like triplet shuffle rhythm, like
which is so much fun to play because like I'm so tired of the four on the floor. Like
yeah, exactly same. I'm so tired of four on the floor. I
don't know if you can hear that, but
yeah, I heard anyway. That. I agree. Like it's you got to keep it interesting for yourself, right? And for me, like doing that was like a challenge for me. Like that I had to set myself. I was like, I want to make 2 songs like that for this project, just because I don't think anyone would expect it. I don't know how anyone.
Well, I think that was what I was like. I was really drawn to it because of that. Because it was just not what you'd expect. You know, I mean, it might be hard to like pull that off in a DJ set. You know, but that's fine.
Oh, super difficult. These songs are. I mean, at the same time, like, you know, at the start. Before quarantine started, like I had so much pressure on me to sort of develop a live show and develop like the live conceptualization of what this EP was going to be. And now all that pressure is gone and it feels fucking great. Like I don't feel the pressure to like make a live show, and that's fine with me. Like I think the plan for me is to like, you know, make as much music as I can over the next, you know, 6 months to a year until whenever touring comes back, and then decide sort of like what to do with it and how to present it. Because if it means that I can't play these songs live, that's fine with me.
It's fine.
If it means that they're just listening music, that's okay with me too.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I remember, like for me, when I first started writing like original stuff, I had been like, it was kind of the same thing. I was DJing everywhere, like it was like flying all over the world. Like it made sense for me to make dance music, but that's just not what came out. That wasn't natural. It didn't feel right. And what came out was actually a lot more like pop music and like slower stuff, like more interesting.
Songs.
Like songs, like in the traditional sense. And I remember at the time I was like, oh no, like
yeah, that's how I felt as well. As soon as I made Mutual and as soon as I made Olivia, I was like, oh fuck, my DJ bookings are gonna go through the floor.
And then I was like, oh, I'll do a band, and then I started to get the offers for band fees versus DJ fees, and it was like, oh no, like what am I doing? In the end, it was worth it because you separate yourself from everybody else, right? And I think that's what's happening right now with you, perhaps, where it's like maybe people that knew you from earlier stuff, you know, Hype Machine era, whatever things, and then see what you're doing now. It's like I think we'll have sort of newfound appreciation for it.
I hope so. I mean, at the chat, pre-save my EP.
Yeah.
Link in bio.
I was actually lining you up for that plug, but glad you saw it coming.
Thanks. Thank you.
So actually, I mean, I feel like we've been going for almost like 2 hours. I feel like we sort of got into like a lot of really interesting stuff, and you know, I don't know. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course,
and
man. Thanks for having me. It was a great time. I mean, we talk about this shit on the daily anyway, so like, why not do it on stream?
Second podcast success.
Let's go.
So I need to upload them to Spotify specifically. See how they feel about that. See if we'll get some playlisting for my podcast. Maybe they'll.
For your snide digs at Spotify podcast.
Well, until they start paying $200 million to the artist, you know, maybe then I'll eat my words then. But until then, I'm gonna keep keeping them in check a little bit. I mean, it's all in good fun, but I don't know how they feel about it. We'll see. But anyway.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Course. I had a great time. Great chatting. I'll see you in the gulag soon.
See you in the gulag. Thank you so much for the chat. I'm gonna stick around. I'm gonna play some music for you all. I'm gonna take like a little break and feed the cats and all that stuff. But let's get some lint rollers in the chat for Asim, and yeah, actually
Lint roll
Yeah,
this
yeah.
in the chat.
Let's actually maybe Brett can post. Do you want to post some like social links in there so people can follow you?
Oh yeah, I don't subscribe to you. That's a joke.
Oh, you know what? I did make it sub only. Here, let me turn that off.
Oh, I don't have the links. I'm on my PC. Brett
Right.
can do it. Sweet. Well, dude, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Again.
Thank you for being here.
Excellent times. Of course. I'll catch you
See
in
you.
the
Good
vlog.
luck. See ya.
Peace, dude.
See
See you
ya.
guys.
Okay.